We are here today to celebrate the life of Marjorie Kexel Stueber. Her life began July 31st, 1931, in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, where she was born to Edward and Emma Kexel. She had a younger sister named Mary. Ed and Emma, along with Emma's sister Minnie, lived with Emma's parents, Mary and Leonard Schwimmer, because Emma's mom was ill. After Emma's parents passed away, their house was sold and Marge's dad took a job in Davenport, Iowa. Marge was in 4th grade at the time. They didn't live in Davenport for very long because her dad got a job in Rockford, Illinois. So off they went to Love's Park to put down roots. Marge was sent to the Lutheran school in Jefferson for 7th and 8th grade because her dad wanted her to go to school where he had gone. She stayed with her dad's parents, her grandparents. She came back to Love's Park to continue her education. In 9th grade, she started going to formal dances. One of her boyfriends had red hair. Interestingly enough, the man she was to marry would have red hair too. Her daughters later played in her formal dresses. Formal dances weren't the only fun she had. Also, during this time, Marge and her wild friend Caroline took Caroline's parents' car, skipped school, and drove up to Lake Geneva. Marge's parents sold the house in Love's Park and moved back to Fort Atkinson, where Mom graduated from high school. After high school, she got her first job working at a dry cleaner. One evening after work, Marge and her friend Florence went to a local bar hangout. Florence and her boyfriend, a bartender there, introduced Marge to her future husband Jerry Stueber. Marge and Jerry tied the knot on December 29, 1951, while Jerry was on furlough after basic training. They had their wedding at the Lutheran church with a beautifully decorated Christmas tree. They had their wedding reception at Marge's parents' house on South 6th Street in Fort Atkinson. That union lasted 61 years. Jerry was stationed in Hawaii at Pearl Harbor during the Korean War. Marge later joined him as they had a wonderful 6 months on the island of Oahu. Marge loved Hawaii. Their first daughter, Susan, was born there at Tripler Army Hospital. But sadly, 1 month after Susan was born, Marge contracted a bad case of polio. They all had to be flown back to Wisconsin in December of 1952, where Marge recovered at her grandparents' house in Jefferson, where her parents were now also living. So there was a lot of help for Marge and baby Sue. Jerry finished his service in the Marine Corps at the Great Lakes Naval Base. The polio affected Marge's neck and stomach muscles, and she coped with residual muscle weakness for the rest of her life. After Jerry was discharged, he got his first job teaching PE at a junior high school in Fort Atkinson. Marge and Jerry lived in a small apartment, and it was there that they brought home their second daughter, Deborah, in 1955. In 1957, Jerry was hired at the brand new Muskego High School, and the family moved from Fort Atkinson to Michigan, which was near Muskego. They were close to Marge's uncle George and wife Viola, who lived on a small dairy farm nearby. It was here that Susan and Deborah's brother, Paul, entered the picture in 1958. Many good times were spent with extended family during the summers in northern Wisconsin at Beanfang's cottage in Minocqua. Shortly after Paul was born, the family moved to Lake Dunoon, which was closer to Muskego High School. They rented a home on the lake. They became good friends with both their neighbors Ray and Dottie Christensen and Al Netter and his mother Flossie. Mom and Dad welcomed their daughter Lori there on Mother's Day in 1961. During all of this time, Marge was busy caring for her now 4 young, active children. Marge and Jerry planned on having 4 kids as an average of 6 in Jerry's family and 2 kids in Marge's family. Consequently, Lake Dunoon was a busy time. There was ice skating, swimming, boating, fishing, raising 2 baby raccoons, and tarantulas, not to mention all of the kids that Marge now had to keep track of. Marge wasn't too athletic. She was raised more in cities than her country boy husband, now PE science teacher. But she was a good sport and mostly tolerant of her wild bunch. When Jerry got the chance to further his education at Michigan State in East Lansing, they moved to the campus Married housing complex. It was a small 2-bedroom apartment on the 2nd floor, and Marge and Jerry slept on a fold-out couch in the living room. Marge, as usual, made the best of things and made friends with many people. Among them, an English couple and a couple from Colombia, from whom she took Spanish lessons. Marge's love of international people continued its constant thread throughout our lives. After the year in Michigan, the family rented a farmhouse in Muskego, complete with a big barn, various outbuildings, and a silo surrounded by cornfields, a marsh, and woods. Marge's children played in the hay barn, ran around and drove the car in the old apple orchard, climbed trees, and on old farm equipment. The house was a mile from school, and the family lived there happily for 6 years. Marge was a huge supporter of Jerry's continued education. Most summers, they camped in a tent trailer, traveling to and from Jerry's summer institutes. Marge was patient and a real trooper, camping with 4 kids, 1 in diapers, fighting, crying, tired, and fidgety. She made lunches at rest stops and dinners on a 2-burner camp stove. Camping with 4 kids wouldn't have been anyone's first choice. Later in life, camping trips were more enjoyable with less children at home and then in retirement. In the early fall of 1969, they moved out of the farmhouse because the city of Muskego had bought the property to build City Hall and a library. Marge convinced Jerry to get a VA loan to build the family a house. They built a 2-story, 4-bedroom colonial house on an acre of land on Kelsey Drive, which was a couple of miles from the high school. While the house was under construction, the family lived in a small cottage on Lake Dunoon that had 2 bedrooms and an enclosed porch where 3 children had to sleep. Winter set in and their new house wasn't finished. To keep us warm in the small cottage, plastic and bales of hay were placed around the outside. Once the furnace was in the new house, the family started to camp on the floor in sleeping bags. It was worth it once we all moved into our new home on January 31st, 1970. Marge and Jerry lived there for 35 years and had so much fun and made so many good memories with relatives and friends. Marge loved her colonial home. Besides her job at Bay Lane and taking care of her family, Marge got involved in the American Field Service and started a chapter in Muskego. This program brought students from other countries and sent students from Muskego High School to other countries during their senior year. Marge was the president of the Muskego chapter. The first AFS student came to Muskego from New Zealand for the school year of 1968 to 1969. Each year, Marge would have to find families that would host that year's student and would also make their experience wonderful while they were far from home. Marge welcomed them into her home for dinners and gatherings. In 1977, Marge temporarily stepped down as the president of AFS to host a student from Brazil, Leila Antunes. It was an amazing experience for the family. Leila would call Marge the president of the family, and her husband the vice president. We all loved Leila and stayed in contact throughout the years. Her daughter Lori even went to visit Leila in 2016. Marge coordinated programs, potlucks, and farewell parties for AFS students. The programs that the students had to attend in the community was about them sharing information about their country. she also headed up the annual pizza-making fundraiser. This was a fun event, and the pizzas were tasty. A fruit sale was also held to raise money. AFS was a huge part of her life, and she truly loved it. Each student would grace her with gifts from their country. At times, she would even don a country's customary dress. She respected each and every one of them. She continued being a part of AFS until 2012, even after she eventually stepped down as the president. Her involvement with AFS was shared with her family, which enriched their lives. Marge was also a fierce supporter of the Friends of the Muskego Library, and she, along with her husband, worked tirelessly to raise money to build the current library in Muskego. Marge and Jerry were so proud of the result, and their commemorative brick, this kind of passion carried over to their love of the Wisconsin Badgers and Green Bay Packers. After finding out Jerry had Alzheimer's, Marge began to figure out what her next step was going to be to make sure she and her husband would be in a good place. This was when she decided they should move to Tudor Oaks Senior Living Community. After lots of packing, selling, and donating of their things, they moved into their new apartment at Tudor Oaks in July of 2005. They enjoyed Tudor Oaks. They decorated their new place, even adding a patio so they could enjoy the outdoors and Jerry could have his bird feeders. Marge did some gardening outside their apartment, helped Jerry feed the birds, and they both relaxed on their patio. She also got involved with the library at Tudor Oaks, ushered at church service, took water aerobics and other exercise classes, enjoyed the many themed parties, headed up her Wings Committee, and was involved with much of the changes in the evolution of Tudor Oaks. In 2015, she moved to assisted living and settled in nicely. Her new place was very cozy. Tudor Oaks put in a dog run, and her children would take her there when they came to visit. She loved watching her furry grandbabies play. In 1997, the family had a reunion in the Black Hills. It was a great time seeing Mount Rushmore, the Crazy Horse Monument, the caves, and the buffalo. One night, Dad and the kids had a ritual burning of Marge's hat that she had bought in Tijuana in the early 1960s. It was a straw hat with red fringe and red dingle balls, and they were all glad to see it go. Dad made a great speech releasing the hat to the gods in true native style. Marge and Jerry were able to do other types of traveling, such as several trips to Hawaii to visit Jerry's brother Bud and his wife Cease. After they both had retired, they took an Alaskan trip that had them on a cruise that led to a train ride and walking on glaciers. Jerry was an avid photographer, and through the years, he took a lot of pictures of his beautiful wife. Marge was always lending a hand to those who needed it. She was generous, caring, supportive, and always available to listen. She was a surrogate mother to many of the AFS students, nieces and nephews, young teachers at Muskego High School, one in particular, Bob Lang, and many of her children's friends. Marge lived her life for her family, but also for herself. She addressed all the challenges that came her way with passion and positivity. She continually educated herself and evolved with the times. She was a good wife, mother, grandma, aunt, and friend. She typically put others before herself and rarely complained. Up until her last days, she was still watching out for the residents of Tudor Oaks and offering a smile to those that crossed her path. She will be dearly missed and will always be our angel.
He won't even look up. What's with you? Here. Raylan, look at Grammy. Raylan. 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 Raylan.
Oh,
Yeah.
Bowie kissy ma, Grammy.
Okay, boy. Okay, boy.
I'm doing a video.
Raylan.
Except for Huckleberry.
Raylan.
Because I don't know any.
Is he being a little stubborn
Look at
boy? Yeah.
For
Bullhead.
those of you who haven't read
Hey, look at Grammy.
here's all you need to know.
Hi.
The
Hi,
drawing
Raylan.
extra print.
Hi, Raylan. Hi, Raylan. Hello. Oh. Hi there. Oh, yeah. Good boy. Good boy.
Oh, he's got the tongue going too.
Yeah.
Aw. Merry Christmas, Mom.
Yeah.
Say Merry Christmas back. I'm doing a video.
Oh, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Love you.
Love you.